It's the 8th week with the team being on site, and their work on renovating the roof on this side of the house is almost complete, with just some final tile laying and some tidying up to do. And I'm very pleased with how the roof is looking and to be able to stop worrying about the risk of rain during the work. But with the team now starting work on repairing various external walls, I've got some different risks and worries to deal with. So we're taking a few deep breaths and trusting in their skills and experience. But on the first day, it was a beautiful, clear morning with no risk of rain and no particular risks with the work for that day. And as usual, the day started with me opening up. And then the team arrived shortly after. And then I continued with my morning checks. Before checking in with the team. Then returning to my water supply duties for the mortar that the team would need for the final tile laying work. Fodo was back to his early morning stretches in between lifting mortar. And I was back to filling up the water deposit. Before checking on any video footage from the weekend. And then doing some email admin during the coffee break, first of all with the view in front, and then inside the shed. Then I was pleased to see the final piece of gutter work had arrived for fitting around the curve at the front. And while I was watching the gutter being fitted from below, I started some tidying up work in preparation for work around the front wall later in the week. Then I was out to the back for lunch and to watch the team's progress on the roof. Before heading indoors for more tidying up in relation to the work on the front wall. and adding some rough guideline marks to help discuss the work with the team. Which I also added outside. I then headed out to review the branches on trees in an area outside the house, and was very pleased to see a red admiral butterfly still out and about in December, even if its wings did look a bit tattered. And after checking the trees, I was back to checking the team's progress with the last few lines of tiles for this half of the roof. The next day, the team were back on the roof, but starting to do some cleaning up as well, which inspired me to clean up the chainsaw and reset the chain. Back on the roof, the team had started work on the ridge tiles. And the tiles that could now be added above the final gutter section. And I left them to it to head out to buy some new supplies, including a new work jacket for the colder mornings and some gasoline for my generator and garden machines. With the team's roof work nearing completion, I returned to some prep for the next bit of work, with some final measures of the wall, which I then discussed with the architect in relation to the size of concrete beams that we would need to be using. By the end of the day, the team had finished their work laying the tiles, and I was very pleased with how it looked from above. With all the tiles now in place on this part of the roof, this phase of work is pretty much done, but the team do want to do a few more bits of tidying up around the edge, especially filling in some of the tiles and smoothing it with mortar. And then on the other side of the roof, where they've taken off some of the old tiles to use on this side, there are also some other broken tiles, and they're going to do some repair work on that. So this is probably going to take up most of the day, but we'll see how we get on. While Miguel worked on filling in the tile ends, Haggy worked on what I think is called a roof gable finial, or what is locally called a lengua de dragon, or a dragon's tongue. While the other two started throwing off the broken tiles from the other side of the roof. I then headed upstairs to check on how many tiles might need replacing. And then started some tidying up of the space under the new roof. By the mid-morning break, the overall roof was now starting to look a good deal tidier. And after finishing my coffee, I headed out to see the progress up close, only to be distracted by Fodo's attempts to keep himself amused and to improve the strength of his neck. Then I was back upstairs to tidy up the other rooms after being a bit worried that some tiles might fall down during the team's work on repairing the other half of the roof. With their tile disposal finished, I smoothed out the rubble they had created down below. And after lunch, I was back upstairs to check on their repairs from below. And to make some guideline markers on the front wall. And then for some final tidying up for the day, I headed out with the chainsaw to cut up some of the bigger branches that I cut down last week, en route checking the team's repair work from above. The next day was another early start. And when the team were on site, they started on some non-roof work. As part of the repair work on all of these walls, we're also going to be taking down that cube. So first up, the team are just adjusting and putting up some new scaffolding to help them do that. And while the team worked on the scaffolding, we had a visit from the team's boss and the technical architect, where we reviewed the roof work and the plans for the upcoming wall work. And after the meeting, I followed the progress on dismantling the cube structure from the outside and then the inside. Not long after, Haggy returned with materials for the initial wall work, including 3 big concrete beams. After the guys' mid-morning break, I had thought it was a good time to talk to you about the experiment in the far corner around there that I've included in 1 or 2 clips and now include in my morning checks. But unfortunately, midway through recording it, Haggy arrived with a whole lot of new materials and it all got a bit noisy. So this is my second attempt at recording it. You may remember that just before we started the roof work, I talked about the Reolink camera that I had installed up there to keep a watch on the entrance space. Well, I was so pleased with it that I asked Reolink if they might be able to give me another camera to watch the other sides of the house. And Reolink very kindly did send me another camera, a slightly different model this time. And it's that camera which I have in the corner up there to keep a watch on this side of the house. And this is a Go PT Ultra camera, which like the other one has its own solar panel, so I don't need a power connection. And like the other camera, it only records when it detects motion in front of it. And like the other camera, it comes with a strap, which makes it incredibly easy to set up. And it includes a memory stick below in case I want to save any of the videos and watch them elsewhere. But the big difference with this camera and the massive advantage is that it includes a micro SIM card, which means that I can follow what the camera can see via the Reolink app at any stage without a Wi-Fi connection being necessary. Now I've had the camera in this corner because of the view that it can capture and to look at this side of the house, but also because the camera is not too visible from outside. But not a lot has been happening in this area during that time, and most of the images that the camera has caught has either been of insects, small birds, or anything that's been blowing in the wind. But once we've finished the roof work and been able to take down the scaffolding, I think I'll probably put the camera on the front of the house so that it can capture both the view and everything that's going on in front. Anyway, for now, I am incredibly grateful to Reolink for providing me with a great solution for being able to see the house at any stage without having a Wi-Fi connection or a permanent power source. And it gives me a lot of reassurance about the security of the house. And if you would like to know more about the Go PT Ultra, there is some extra information in the description of this video. For now, it's back to checking on how the guys are getting on with their work. With Hagi and Photo starting some work on the front wall, and Miguel and Alu continuing their work on the cube structure. After closing off the opening to the cube structure from the inside, I finished off some final tidying up of broken tiles on the floor. Before it was the end of the day for the team and then me. On the last day of the week, it was another early start. With the moon clear in the sky behind the house. And when the team arrived, they quickly got into the wall work, with Hagi confirming some measures with a laser. And after confirming their work plans, they started removing material from the front to enable a first beam to go in place that will support the ground floor opening on this wall. And while they got into that work, I restarted work on taking down the cube structure. First of all, removing rubble from on top of the floor that was in the middle of the structure. After the mid-morning break, the team finished the stonework above the new beam and then put in a series of temporary bricks to support it better from below while they're doing the work. They then moved inside to repeat the beam process from the other side, confirming measures, setting up scaffolding, and then carefully and steadily chipping out stones from the inside. By the middle of the day, the team had removed a lot of stones and were almost ready to put 2 new beams in place. After fixing a few stones and temporarily propping certain parts. which I didn't find the easiest to watch, so I headed back outside for more work and then a bit later for some lunch. And then afterwards, I watched the teams work on putting the new beams in place inside and helping out where I could. Towards the end of the day, the team started their tidying up work and closing out any gaps between the new inner beams and the stones in the wall above. And that is the end of work for this week, with the main work area moving back to this corner after we finished the work on the roof. And in the last 2 days, we've made good progress at taking down the cube structure and then starting the work on this front wall, where somewhat ironically, we've been getting ready to take out the one part that doesn't have a whole lot of bricks that need to be replaced with stones. But once the new beams are in their final position at the beginning of next week, we'll be able to start working on creating the wider opening and then doing the repair work further up above the wall. After which we'll be able to close out the opening here and give the whole of this wall a stone finish. So please do tune in next week to see how we get on.